Our beautiful 1965 Mercedes 230 SL has just come back from a film set, and whilst it was there, it developed a small leak on the rear wheel brake cylinder. On these early 230s, the front brakes were discs and the rear brakes were drums. So we've got standard calipers, disc brakes on the front, drum brakes on the back. As is often the case with these older Mercedes, you can still get the parts. So you have a choice of getting a rebuild kit for the rear wheel cylinder, which is about 10 to 15 pounds. You can get a reproduction of the actual wheel cylinder itself, which is about 50 to 60 pounds, and you can still actually get the original wheel cylinders, which is about 160 pounds. In one particular scene that this car was in, the rear tyre is slashed with a knife, and the film company has kindly provided us with 2 new rear tyres, which we're going to get quick fit to fit for us today. But just before we do that, I want to ask you a question. How many of you can think of any other 2-seater sports car which can do this? Are you ready? Wow, look at that. This car, the boot or the trunk, as they say in America, can fit 3 wheels in the back of it. My SL55 cannot even fit 1 wheel in the back of it. And even the R107, which has got a massive boot, I wonder if that could actually fit 3 tyres in the back of it like that. The other thing which the film company discovered, and I'm not sure if this is just on this car or on all 113s, if anyone's got a Pagoda out there, I'd love to know the answer, is that the rear spare tyre does not have the lugs on it which are required to fit these hubcaps here. So the spare tyre on this car is slightly different, and in fact they had to end up slashing the spare tyre and not one of the tyres on the car as a result of that, and glue on the hubcap with blue tack or something like that as part of the film. Well, I didn't expect that. We went along to Quick Fit to get them to put the new tyres on, and they refused because these days they don't fit tyres that they haven't supplied. Now these tyres here, strangely enough, are actually Quick Fit branded tyres, which I must have put on this car many years ago. You can see how they're cracked. They definitely need replacing, but Quick Fit have done our tyres on all of our cars for about 20 years, but not anymore. These outer chrome rims here just pry off with a pry bar or a screwdriver, and similarly this inner hub here will come off with a screwdriver or a crowbar. When this car's finished with the current film, I think what we'll do is get all of these inner wheels here sandblasted and then powder coated in this colour here. We're going to use the car's own jack to lift this car. Now, I would not recommend using the jacking points in an old Mercedes unless you are absolutely sure that your car is not rotted out, which in this case I am. So we're going to jack the car up, and then we're going to use an axle stand under the suspension point. Once you've taken the wheel off, that reveals the brake drum here. Once you've taken the wheel off, you should just be able to wiggle the brake drum off. And what you don't want to find is this here. Brake fluid all over the brake linings and all within the brake. This has obviously been leaking for quite some time. Now, I am no expert on brakes, but I would say that this drum here is knackered. If you can see that there, it's almost like that's cracked and lifted. And I imagine that's digging into the brake shoes. What we're going to need to do is take this here off, and in order to do that we're going to put the handbrake on, and that should spread these shoes out, make it a little bit easier to get that off. Next we're going to have a go and see if we can wheel this cylinder out here. It's held on by 2 13mm bolts at the back here. And a spring washer. Right. That is the cylinder there. So we got that cylinder out. Let's have a little look now at what's going on in here. This seems very loose. I mean, lordy, it's just filthy in there. I don't know if this cylinder is going to be
if we can still going to be able to use this cylinder, to be honest with you.
Now, to get these golden pistons out there, we're going to attach it to a spare master cylinder, and then we are going to hit the end of this with a mallet and see if we can get those pistons to come out, and then we'll be able to put some new seals in there and inspect the balls. You can see that piston there is just about to come out. A couple more bashes with the hammer and I reckon we'll have that. And there we have one of the pistons out. That there is the leaky seal. I won't take that out just yet because all the brake fluid will leak out. We just have to figure out how to get the other one out now. This seal, the hollow side, goes on the inside. Then on the inside you have this spring attachment here, so that these seals basically sit like that on the end of the spring, and we should now be able to push the other one out. There'll be a whole load of dirty brake fluid in there. Just using a vise and a socket here, the flat end of the socket, we should be able to bash that out. There we go. Now you can see what the issue is. This is the new seal here. You can see how tightly that fits in there. This is the old seal, and that just fits way too loosely in there. So I think once we've got the new seals in there, that will stop that leaking. And before we put all of this back together, we're just going to go over the wire wheel. We'll get this back to bare metal, possibly paint it with a little bit of rust encapsulator. But I think what we will do is order a couple of new ones of these, and when we've got a little bit more time, do a proper brake job, new brake shoes. Obviously we're going to need a new brake drum at some stage, but just to get this car back on the road for the film it's currently in, we're just going to clean this up, put the whole thing back together. When you put the new rubber bungs in there, for want of a better word, it's not a bad idea to lubricate them with a little bit of brake fluid, and similarly just the outside of the pistons, when you put them back in, just lubricate them with a little bit of brake fluid. We just tidied up these bolts on a wire wheel, but we will come back and replace all of this with stainless steel so it doesn't rust in the future. I'm going to finish this video here. I got everything back together. When we went to initially test drive the car, I tried to move forward and the car locked up straight away, and I tried to move back and it locked up straight away, and I assumed that I hadn't adjusted the brakes properly, but in actual fact I'd just forgotten to remove the bricks that I put in front of the wheels. So everything's working fine. A new brake drum for this car, reproduction from the SL shop, costs about £400. So to redo the rear brakes, I imagine you will not get much change by the time you've got new shoes, etc., from £1,000. Although we will at some stage be buying a complete cylinder, the seal kit we bought cost just £4.55. I think it came from Lithuania, from these guys here via eBay.